12th or 13th with the calendar change of May, just as soon as evaluation week ends, essentially, and you have maybe a day to turn around and get goods home or stay, and we'll work that out. It's a bit of a frenzy getting out, but exciting, so we can get you back to campus possibly, or to interns by the 1st of June. So that's the reason a number of the faculty-led projects like this head out for a 15 to 18 days right in there at the end of spring semester. In this particular program, this will be the 3rd time that we've done it, and so it's evolving. And Christopher and Ellen, if you have a comment and you want to interrupt, feel free to just cut in and say, oh, yes, I want to say something. But we left predominantly, in this case, from Chicago, and that varies. We try to go out of Minneapolis, but we recognize that there's some students who are on the west side of the state and some on the east side of the state, and that's also tricky at the end of the semester. But we work with everybody, and the international office works really hard to make all this work as smoothly and as comfortably as possible for the students, as well as for the parents who may be seeing their children, their babies, go away for the first time, and some of them on a plane for the first time, and some are very seasoned travelers. So we get quite a mix. Anyway, we fly in the last 2 years. We've flown into Copenhagen and made a trip through the south of Sweden up to the center of Sweden and then out of Stockholm. We did a Copenhagen to Copenhagen sort of round trip, I think, with this last one, and then it looks like for 2022 we'll try to go into the middle of Sweden, and Chris and you and Ellen know it's Linköping, so we'll probably try to fly in there. And again, it's a little as dictated. If suddenly the prices are $2,000 to $3,000 more for a flight ticket into that city, we make some adjustments, because it doesn't make sense to stick to those itineraries if it knocks everybody's budget out of whack. So we don't do that. But right now we're planning on going into Linköping and spend a number of days, because that city is fairly close to Skövde University, where Stout has had now a 26-year relationship with that particular college, particularly in game design. And so there are a number of students that have come from Skövde to the United States and to Stout, and we haven't been able to fit that into the program in the past. So now the goal is to go and actually have students from Stout from different disciplines, and including those in games and design, and from business and psychology and any other discipline, major or minor, people want to come on. We make it work for you. And so we'll visit Skövde. We'll visit. The idea of these programs, that as it was for Chris and Ellen, is that there's a lot of focus on innovation, on technology that comes out of Sweden. Sweden has some great inventions, things like the 3-way safety belt that you use in your car comes from it. The zipper comes from Sweden. There's some dynamite comes from Sweden, if you know, that's Nobel. And so when people talk about the Nobel Prizes, that's Alfred Nobel who did that. And sadly, blew up and killed his 15-year-old brother too with it, and that's the sad side that a lot of people don't know about. I don't mention that and give you a downer tonight, but a lot of good inventions. And so we visit companies, we look at everything from agriculture. I think with you guys we did recycling, yes, and kind of a smelly place. Do you want to say anything about the smelly place?
Yeah, it was really cool. It was great to see how they were like innovating and kind of like using waste to propel their city forward. But yeah, definitely needed some like nose plugs or something. That was arguably the worst smelling place I'd ever been to in my life.
It was pretty strong. It's a good way to get rid of the garbage and heat your home and everything at the same time. There are no hot water heaters in the majority of homes in Sweden for probably the last 60, now 70 years. Because it's all coming from recycled garbage that sends your hot water under the streets just below the frost line, so that a lot of areas in Sweden this time of year, instead of ice, you have clear sidewalks and melted, because the heat from your garbage is also helping to melt the ice on the sidewalks and give you a shower that never runs out of hot water. You still have to pay for the water. So that's risky if you have a son like mine who likes a 20-minute shower, and he came to Sweden and said, "Mom, the shower's still hot." Get out of the shower. So it's kind of funny. But we traveled to 5 cities, which will include Stockholm This time Skövde as well. We're going to try to add in a little bit more time in Copenhagen and Denmark. Most of the visits, what we do is we'll tailor a little bit of the visits to company based on the interests and backgrounds of anybody who signs up for the program, but it's called Gamification and Technology again. We did a trip in, oh, and look, speaking of gamification, that was perfect timing. I say the word and Carl shows up. That's pretty good. We planned it that way, I'm sure. But in 2018, I traveled with Diane Christie from the computer science department to kind of test this. And Sweden, as some of you may know, is known for Minecraft and Battlefields and massive entertainment. UB-Soft, White Wolf Publishing, I think we did also in 2018. We did manage to get into DICE back then. In 2019, the focus wasn't so much on gamification, although we had some people interested in that, of course, and we visited some of the companies, but it was a bit more of a focus on various forms of innovation. The goal from the business department perspective, may be important to some people to know, is that it's a business course in the sense that you are visiting businesses, getting a sense of how culturally business operates on the other side of the world, and opportunities potentially for internships and for connections is there. So it is that sharing and exchange of culture, as well as businesses that may be specific to one's interests. Ellen, you were an HDFS, that's right? So Human Development Family Services. So that's an example, but I think you found things that were relevant there to your own major. I don't know, maybe even the Mothers of the World thing. Was that interesting to you?
Oh yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite stuff.
You really like that? They were exhausted when we got to Lidköping, and they'd just gotten off a 4-hour train ride. And I said, go, we'll get to the hotel. We're going to run back and hop on a bus for 40 minutes. And they're like, oh my God. But you guys got to know the transportation systems pretty well too.
Oh yeah.
You think you could handle it when you get back over there?
I'm hoping. I still have, I think, in my little travel box, I still have my bus card that I got.
Okay.
Yeah, same.
So hopefully it's still good when I go back. 20
kroner. Yeah. Oh, that's fun. And so I would say going forward for next year, what I really enjoyed the idea of the part of this is to get multidisciplinary as possible, reflect the polytechnic spirit, really think hard about innovation and business and the kinds of intersections. And so I was chatting with Carl Cayley here from Game Design, and it said, you want to come along on this? I didn't want to necessarily bring more than about 16, seems to. We had a wonderful group with Chris and Ellen with 12 students and just me. With Carl coming along, I think a handful more. In the first year we had 23. Crossing the street is difficult with 23. And you're always kind of counting and going, oh my gosh, have we missed one, and that kind of thing. So it's a little bit more. I think 16 should be probably pretty nice with us. And Carl has the experience and expertise. And Carl, you've been to Skövde. I was just mentioning that before you came in. So I don't know what we'll be doing there now. We have to kind of regroup and replan, because I had one set of plans for this year if we had been able to go for May 2021. But now we have a year to make different arrangements and plan out even possible different kinds of activities. But maybe talk about that, Carl.
Yeah. So I came in a little bit late, but let me just tell you a brief introduction. My name is Carl Cayley. I've been teaching in the Game Design and Development Department under the School of Art and Design. I teach games and how to make pretty pictures and things, making animations and such. I did go to Sweden 2 summers ago, for a conference, the higher education.
When we were there, guys, just on an overlap. He came in like 3 days before we left.
Yeah. And this conference was more geared towards video game research, and so I got to tour the campus of Skövde. I got to go to Stockholm and Gothenburg, and even had some chance to play a tourist for a little while too. And so I think in a bigger picture, if you haven't had a chance to travel overseas, getting that opportunity to see other people and go to a place where you can't necessarily read the language immediately, it gives you a chance to play a bigger game of how do I find the bathroom? How do I know where do I go? It's kind of a fun experience. And I think I've got my bus card still as well,
Yeah.
my train card. Um, so yeah, there's an awful lot to do, and I'm really excited about this. When Mary mentioned this opportunity, I was like, yeah, I'll totally be an assistant on this trip. It's amazing. And the thought came up about how I might be able to perhaps augment what's happening in the business classes by providing some expertise in the area of presentations, of graphics, things that you might not get in the entrepreneur program, or maybe just dappled throughout. Potentially even doing a mini lecture or something else that could be geared towards the graphics applied to your business presentations.
Absolutely, so invaluable, and we'll do that. And we don't with business, as Chris and Ellen had the advantage. Well, Chris, you were in an interesting situation, so it's actually good you're in the room. I was thinking, and Taylor, you maybe wanted to do this in segue, so we find out a little bit about Dylan. And I don't see, who is that? Adriana, is that it? Yeah, what the two of you, what brought you here before we tell you everything about us and you don't get a chance to talk about you and why you're interested in a program.
There we go.
There we go.
I'm interested in the program because I've actually traveled to Spain and Portugal, and when thinking about study abroad opportunities, I was kind of on the edge about like doing a full semester one, and I thought it might be more interesting to have like a faculty-led one, for both like the length and like the expertise the faculty bring. And I thought like through having Dr. Spaeth for international business last semester and like talking about it, it sounded pretty interesting to me that way.
Okay, thank you. That'd be good. What was your reaction to the title? I knew you had my benefit of telling you a little bit. I didn't say much about this gamification and technology. Was that interesting or a turn off or confusing?
Yeah, personally, I thought it was kind of interesting just because, in my free time, I enjoy researching about like the latest trends in technology, whether it's like automation and robotics or driverless cars or just whatever it is. So definitely like to get more like a world perspective or a global perspective rather about it too. I thought that would be kind of interesting. And then also just like the timing of it to be like during one of the summers too would be kind of a nice like experience for like better part of a month is what I thought too.
That's perfect. You just gave me a great idea, but before I say it, yeah, I want to hear from Adriana as well. Tell us about you.
She's
Oh, I think it's the microphone still on though.
In chat, she writes, a psychology major, and I like learning about all the different study abroad and faculty-led opportunities.
Okay. We had one psychology student in 2018, and that was Nate Merrill, who came along with us. He actually won the pitching contest that we had that year. I don't know if we'll do a contest like that. You never know what comes up. But those students were working specifically, the course was tied to the business capstone business plan, and that was tough. Those students, if you talk to them how it was, they might say they'd never do it again. I don't know. That's what I will say. Now, only because of the work, and I'd come in and they're working on business plans 2-3 nights before we had to leave, and I'm going, why aren't you guys out on the town, and why aren't you doing this? And they're looking at me like, why aren't we? Because we're doing a 25-page business plan. Chris is nodding simply because what we did 2 years ago was adjust that so that, and we had a different course number. We have even a third course number associated with it for next year, to make it as flexible as possible. So it's not because, we don't know what we're doing, but clearly to respond to the students, the different kinds of needs. And we also introduced a new course to go along with a new entrepreneurship minor. And so this BUMGT 380 is one that's open to students across campus. It's an introduction to entrepreneurship and innovation. We've tagged on the Scandinavian gamification technology piece of it for a little bit of a focus. But students who still want to do what Chris, you did, and two others did in the course was to get credit in case of business for the capstone. They came back and spent another month with me beating up on them to produce a business plan. Chris did an amazing one with one. You worked together. And Franny, I don't know if Franny was going to maybe try to come in tonight, but yeah, so Chris and Franny ended up doing a project, and Chris, you tied it to one of your internships over at Northwestern Mutual. So that works. So there are some options that are people, and I think Ellen, you got credit through HDFS for an elective you needed to catch. Was that correct?
So for HDFS, we had to do like a cultural integrative type of experience. And so I used a study abroad experience for that.
Did you submit in any chance that the outcome, the output, the deliverable, as we say in business, for the course was a business journal, which they're beautiful. I just went through them all again and I almost cried. They're just gorgeous. Did you turn that in by any chance to HDFS, or did they ever see it?
No, they didn't see it. We just forwarded whatever information we needed for that study abroad program to our program director, and then they waived it for us.
Okay, well, that's good. So that gives you a chance. And Stout, I think Stout overall is very good at that kind of cooperation between program directors and students. So Adriana in psychology, the same kind of thing. And if you thought, wow, are you interested in gamification? I guess we'll watch for your chat if you say that, if you're interested in games or not. And I can possibly tell you how we connect psychology into that. And I think Carl could do the same. Every game firm has psychologists. Yep. Sister,
I wasn't going to out you, but yeah, I believe I have your sister in class right now. So.
Oh, interesting. And you don't have to be, as I say, there's so much more to the experience, from hiking and kayaking and visits to, in the Vasa, you saw that too, Carl, I think in Stockholm.
I missed it. I missed it. I went to Gamification and I walked around and toured the old, I toured the palace.
Okay.
But I saved something up for next time.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I can't get enough of that ship. It's just, it's amazing. So we see, all kinds of cultural events, and we've been lucky both years so far getting out on the boat and for a dinner cruise. And that was a lot of fun that we did. And watching somebody sing, what Old Town Road.
Oh, yeah. What was it? Country Road.
Yeah, Country Roads. We sang on the. Yeah, that was fun.
They were the most obnoxious people on that boat.
We're about the only ones. I think there was
Yeah.
one or two other tables. So we did our 3-hour cruise and we came back and didn't end up on a tropical island anyway. Am I too old to give that illusion?
Well, that was great. That was definitely one of the highlights of the trip.
It's nice. It was pretty emotional.
Mm-hmm.
That's very good. What else do you guys want to hear about or share? Or Dylan, or question, or Adriana, if you have a question as well. And it can be practical matters and functional matters. And Safety Taylor, you may have some input on some of that too.
Well, I was just thinking that this recording is a little bit unique because we actually have students who have experienced the program before. So I was going to ask if there was some inside information, that we don't always put out on the sheets of papers that we hand out from people who have experienced, and maybe some things you can share with the students who are thinking about this program. Share.
I guess the one thing the course never really prepped me for was that you don't eat beef in Sweden. So I had to walk 2 miles to the nearest McDonald's in Stockholm just to get a hamburger.
They are around, and that's funny that you say that. There is the Swedes pride themselves on their so-called, I gotta be careful, Swedish beef. There is good beef there, but they tend to prefer the pork, which is an interesting phenomenon. So you get a lot of really good pork. The fancy restaurants have the beef, and you can pick up, of course, your hamburger and beef and steaks in the grocery store like anywhere. But the hamburger joint, did you ever get to a Max Burgers?
I think so. We explored Stockholm a lot and ate pretty much everywhere we could.
That's the copy of, they even have Big Macs in there if they ever try to go over the border. McDonald's would be all over them, but yeah. So I didn't know you went through this trek to find a hamburger.
I think I made that trek 3 days in a row when we were in Stockholm. Oh my
goodness. I might have had a hint for you. So always ask your faculty just in case. Don't be embarrassed.
Yeah, no.
But you probably enjoyed the hunts then, huh?
Oh yeah. Well, and like that was the best part about doing like a month-long trip, because like I'm an experienced traveler. And it was still one of those things where it's like I really, really liked like Sweden and Copenhagen and you know, experiencing these different cultures, the food, the artwork, all that stuff. But like, yeah, like the last weekend or so was kind of bittersweet, because like I was gonna miss everybody and miss the experience, but at the same time I was kind of happy to come home. And there were like a lot of things that we have here in America that they don't have, that I just had like newfound appreciation for. And so, you know, I saw myself grow in 2 different ways there.
Thanks for that. That's nice to hear. Ellen, what about you? And any kind of adventures or surprises or?
So going along with the McDonald's, I remember me and Franny. Yeah, I remember me and Franny just really hungry. When we were in Linköping, and we just like walked down the street to the McDonald's, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is our craving that we're like craving so much for. But yeah, I just love all the architecture. I think something that the US doesn't really have is history. I think we're very modern, and we try to evolve in like our architecture, and yeah, once you're there, you just sense so much history, and yeah, that's something that I really miss, and I wish. Oh, I don't want to say I wish, but yeah, that's something that I noticed coming back home, and I miss walking a lot.
I love
taking the train. Yeah, taking the train, or like the metro system. I miss that a lot too.
It's pretty convenient, yeah.
If I could build off that, like that was one of the first things you notice. Like when we were in Copenhagen, all the buildings there were, I mean, you could just tell these were antiques practically, but they were all gutted and put in with like Louis Vuitton and the most modern style stores on the inside. And it was like just walking down the street, you could see everything was just saturated with history and culture, and like the cobblestone roads and stuff. Just like, man, you know, how long has this been here? Opposed to like our blacktop roads that don't last through the winter.
I think that's true. Well, the blacktop lasts longer there too, but there we get into some politics and things in business, obsolescence factor, so that people can get a contract after 3 or 5 or 7 years instead of building it to last. So, but that's the cynical side of business. But we touch on that too, because it frankly moves us over into some business ethics, and you can compare practices in that way as well, and say, can you still make money, and can you, and I guess, Chris, you wrestled with some of those things as you're looking around, maybe coming from a fairly conservative family, and Sweden gets accused of being, oh my gosh, it's a socialist nation, or what does that mean? It's not, you know, it's a social democracy. But trying to say, okay, how is tax money used? What's the infrastructure look like? How modern is it? How is the technology? And as you say, to have this ancient, as you call it, a building that may be from 1100s, 1200s, 1500s, 1800s, and yet it's all retrofitted to be a part of the 21st century. And that's really something to see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Did you have a favorite food there? Either of you?
Oh, the best food that we had definitely came from that Michelin star restaurant in Malmö. Was that it? You know, where we were like walking
Oh,
through the
yes,
shipping
yes,
yard?
yes.
Yeah, that was
Right.
incredible.
I had forgotten, and that was I had no idea how that would end up working because that was quite a long walk out to the harbor as well, as you recall. How many steps a day did you all do? Did you
Dude,
count?
I swear we had like 30,000 every day. Like I had my Fitbit going. It was insane. And then like I guess and like a realistic point, something that they probably should tell you is that like walking on like pavement and walking on cobblestone is completely different. And like
Even
I'm like I said, I travel, I hike, and that stuff obliterated me. So
I shouldn't laugh, but it is to plan for. And you know, the hint is this group, you guys were really good with luggage too. You know, I think our first year, people really listening, and yeah, you don't want to be pulling a 50-pound suitcase over that stuff either. Backpack is great.
mhm.
Yeah. Dylan, what are your thoughts on this? Any other questions you have? I'm conscious we're coming close on the time.
Honestly, I don't really think I have any questions. You just mentioned all these things like the whole cobblestone streets and the McDonald's, and oh my gosh, you just make me think of all these funny little things from Spain and like how my parents and I in Portugal were like, we got to go to a McDonald's once. And
Yeah.
and so we do in Porto, Portugal, and it was just like, oh, this chicken is actually like way healthier than we have in the US.
It was a better
Yeah.
chicken sandwich.
And
Huh?
one of my parents had it, and like they weren't feeling good for the next day, you know. So it's like it's kind of their junk food too, we realized. And yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of fun to see the cultural similarities and differences and stuff. And another thing I think about too, like outside of study abroad, is it's like when you think of somewhere you want to live after college, it's like the place has got to be walkable. And like from what I remember in Europe and what you guys have been mentioning is there's a lot more like walkable neighborhoods and like metro transit type things. And yeah, so I mean that's pretty interesting too.
It's fun. And language, I would say in Scandinavian, particularly in Sweden, the English is, and you probably discovered that, Carl, everyone
Yeah.
speaks English and good English,
Mhm.
Mhm.
where it's understandable. A little different. I think Spain, you have to have you described some of the things to me. I remember last semester, Dylan, of your language issues and changing planes in the airport and that was
Yes.
quite a story. So
Yeah.
in that sense, I would say Sweden is much more accessible and maybe potentially a little bit. I'm thinking of the word, and deceiving is the wrong word, but it can fool you. It's what we might call in English as a second language a false cognate. In language, you have this false friend that you think something's the same either culturally or in a word, and you find out, oops, it really is. So there is that, but for the most part, it's not too difficult. Did you guys have any challenges at some point with language where you just couldn't communicate, Chris or Ellen?
Yeah, I did. I'm not sure if you were with us, Alan. You might have been, but when we were in Simmersam,
Yeah.
we had gone to a Vietnamese restaurant,
Oh,
and they didn't speak Swedish well, nor did they speak English well.
okay.
And so it kind of got to the point where like we were pointing at something on the menu, and then like our waitress would go back and like grab it and bring it out and just like show us like this is what that means. And
Okay.
like we
Okay.
don't want that or we do want that. And so that was definitely a struggle.
That's
But
interesting. Was
it
that
worked
the
out.
place that had the front area and then a long line kind of at the back?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, that was pretty good food.
That was great food.
Interesting.
It worked out. But
Yeah, Simrishamn was nice, and we'll definitely keep that on the
that
agenda.
was the best place.
Did you like the art class? Because I'd sure like to keep it, but I have to talk. Oh yeah, Ellen says yes.
Yeah,
So
Yeah,
that
I
class
loved
was
it.
I
cool.
told you and it's fun. I get the biggest kick about taking business students or non-art students into a figure drawing where suddenly, first of all, you have a model. I shouldn't give you it away, Dylan, but drop it in, and they're drawing 3 hours of, models, and it's a great it's a wonderful experience, and you suddenly realize what you can and can't do. And you might say, well, what's that got to do with business or arts or game design? Carl knows what it's for from game design perspective. From a business perspective, I think it's so important to understand what all of your employees do and how they do it and how long it takes and what the value of work is. And people who work in communications, in marketing, in art, they typically are undervalued in corporations, I believe. And it's not understood why it might take 2 weeks, 3 weeks to design a single logo. Or in the case of animation or in video or in gaming, that when you're tweaking algorithms and you're tweaking code and it's hours and it's hours, and you end up getting paid less than $5 an hour for something, while the people up in the C-suite are making their 100 to 150. And now I probably sound like a Swede, but I'm for a little bit more, at least acknowledgement of other people's roles and work. And I think that's what we can discover from this kind of a trip as well. Yeah, I do like it. Taylor, do we have to go? Do we have to wrap up? Are we required?
No, there's no requirement.
Oh, okay.
But these insights have been great. Are there any last minute questions anybody has, or last big selling points that you really want to get out there to share with student population?
Well, maybe Ellen, you were saying maybe you even said it was your favorite part, and I didn't give you a chance to finish, and that was and we will continue with this Mothers of the World visit as well. In fact, that's growing more. Do you want to talk about that?
Just that it was just so much fun for me. It was so nice to have a home cooked meal, and everybody was so welcoming. I love that we all danced together, and we got to integrate with everybody of all ages. And so, and I love that we brought the guys. I know that was kind of like a cultural thing that could have been.
Well, we arrived on Ramadan.
Yeah.
In the middle of Ramadan, and for Adriana, and Dylan, a friend of mine started an organization about 3.5 years ago now that's called Verdens Mamor, which is Mothers of the World, and it's designed to support the integration of Somali, Afghanistan, Irani, Syrian, probably Iraqi, and even anywhere people, but based on the flux of immigration, especially with the Syrian war and the crises and everything. And Sweden has taken in more immigrants than any country literally in the world, especially per capita, for better or for worse. There's some challenges, but yes. What Siri did that you met was to bring people, all the mothers together, because of, they were used to such a different culture. So it was an introduction to the immigration in Europe and in Sweden, and find out these are people who are becoming Swedish, and what does it mean to come from another part of the world and become Swedish, and how do they interact? And of course you have Christian Syrians and Muslim Syrians, and here we are on Ramadan, and all the women agreed. And it was I think it was about $20 a plate. So that was a part of a fee that went in. And so we offered essentially $200 for this whole evening of all these women to feed us. And they had this spread, as you said, was just magnificent. So all of these women cooked their home cooked foods from all of these countries. And then there were some art projects, and there were children running around. We had games in the yard, carrying eggs on spoons and that kind of thing, out in the housing area where we went. So, and the boys, there were boys, I was saying the men who were with us, there were 4, and there were 8 women and 4. And I was a little worried. So I'd given a mini talk on the bus, on our way out there, saying, this is Ramadan. I don't know how many of the women are going to be still there before they go home to eat after sunset. But, this is a place for women, and it may be that the husbands and the brothers at home don't even appreciate the fact that 4 guys have shown up at this event. So that was the first thing, is you might not really be seen by the men at home as welcome, And that's kind of a heavy thing to dump on these 4 American guys, but you were just marvelous about it, and they kind of stood back. I think as the evening went on, there was only one woman who stayed, who was Muslim. If you guys remember her in the green dress, and she was hilarious because she said, "Oh, I've got diabetes, I've got to eat." We thought it was hilarious, whether it was true or not. I mean, I'm sure, but she was having such a good time, and the dancing, and the guys were able to dance a little bit, and then the goodbyes, they step back because they're not supposed to touch the women. There are no handshakes, and so all the women were hugging, and the guys kind of stood back, and it was a great experience.
Yeah, it was definitely from like the guy's perspective. Like we're on this trip, everybody's happy, we're traveling the world, and then like the day before this event's right around the corner, and all of a sudden it hit and it got really heavy, and it was like, this is a culture, and people that just like, their deep beliefs, and we got to respect it. And at first it was like kind of like walking on eggshells, like who can we talk to, who can we look at, what are the things that we can do. And then I think, like, for me, I can't remember exactly, but there, like you had said, all the girls were had stood back and kind of given us room. And the first people to approach us were their children and stuff, the sons and daughters and stuff.
Pushing some kids out on the swings, weren't you?
And they just ran over and were like, wow, look at these guys. Like, I think at one point it was like, these might have been, or we might have been the first other, like, real guys, men that they had seen, like, up close. And stuff. So it was like kind of, seeing some like odd creature too, in some regards. And so we got to like play games with them, push them on the swings. There was a language barrier there too. Like we really couldn't communicate with them. So like we did like drawings and stuff during crafts. Like, oh, like, what are you trying to say? Like here's like a marker and piece of paper and draw what you want. Like, oh, it's a swing. Like, oh, let's go on the swings.
Yeah, one of the little girls that I was making, like, I think there was a march a couple of days later that they were prepping for, and one of the girls gave me like a little sticker, and I still carry it with me.
Oh, that's really great.
And yeah, it's a memorable moment.
They were preparing for a kind of march with the children. So the organization is fantastic, and because of COVID, they've gone online more. Ellen, you joined online, didn't you, for a short time?
Yeah.
Was that November? I'm trying to think when we did that, or December?
I think November. Yeah.
I think so, and they're planning more. And now Siri's son Zaga he's in his 20s. He's doing online dance classes for them, which is kind of interesting. Speaking of guys, so they're doing these online webinars, and I've been in touch with them recently to say, figure out ways that we can still do things virtually here at Stout with them. And so,
going off of that, I still have like the name tag that we created to like
talk
about the names and stuff like that. So this is one of the group of the kids made this for me, and then they wanted to know my name. So I watched that, and so like I got a little travel box under my desk, and it's got everything I picked up from Sweden, from little rocks here and there, stuff like that, the bus and travel cards and things. So
great. And I can see Dylan smiling because he did the same thing and shared your scrapbook with me from your Spain and Portugal tour. And so you collect a lot of stuff too, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have all those bus tickets and just little fun souvenirs from places we went. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a life-changing experience.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, you guys. That was wonderful. I could talk all night, but I'm conscious of the fact that we're a few minutes over. And
no, good. This was great insight, and it really shows through your little objects that you kept that it really was a unique experience and something you'll remember for the rest of your life.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, thank you, Christopher and Ellen, for coming, and Dylan and Adriana. I'm so glad you came. Feel free to reach out, send emails. You can talk to Taylor and Andrea and to Carl, and probably any of these guys. You can see their names, jot them down real quick if you haven't, and send them emails and reach out, and we're happy to tell you more about it and the cost and where things are going. You've got probably about a $1,500 range in cost. We didn't get it. I don't know, Chris and Ellen, how your ultimate costs were compared to what was posted. That's always something people want to know about a little bit. Did it come down lower than what was published?
Yeah.
I hope so. That's the goal.
Yeah, I
It
think
came
so.
down quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
It is. We're good at cutting corners on this trip. So without cutting quality.
Good to know. Good to know. Well, thank you everybody for sharing. I will share on the screen the website for Study Abroad if you do have any questions, or I'm sure you can email Mary with future questions about this specific program as well.
Yeah, about this program. And there is a video that we did for the one coming up in May, but I think it's still, it hasn't changed really in terms of content, maybe a little on Dayton specifics that you'll want to double check with. But that's on the site, right, Taylor? That's on there.
Yes.
You can click on that video and see a little bit more and some pictures and things like that.
Definitely check out our YouTube channel, and the video link is right up there as well. So
Okay. Well, thank you. I had to say goodbye. This is fun. Now I got to grade papers, right?
yeah.
well, thank you all again, and I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, Taylor.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
all.
you.
Coming, everybody.
Right.
Take care. Bye-bye. See you later, Carl.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.